Hey everybody, I want to talk for a second about shaving lands underneath the usual 17, go to 16, go to 15, go to 14. Some streamers on Arena have even going to 12 and having success with that, purportedly abusing or leveraging the starting hand selection system to make 12 landers work in decks with otherwise normalish looking curves. I've only heard about this. This is what my viewers are telling me. And then we're in an Eldraine draft right now where we're now 0-2, and we have flooded out heavily with our 16 land mono white deck. And there's been some suggestion, well, maybe we should be going to 15. Maybe we should be and some people are being a little results oriented, I think, by saying, hey, we have flooded out here, so therefore let's reduce our lands. But there are others who are saying, no, like there are strong players, mythic level players who are having great success going way low on lands and making that work for them. And I wanted to speak to that on a couple of levels. First, I want to start with the notion of trying to abuse the starting hand selection algorithm. For those of you who don't know, in best of one games, what the system does is it basically, imagine this: take 2 copies of your deck, draw a starting hand from each of them. No, that's not true. It's from the same deck, right? Sorry. So imagine one deck and draw 2 starting hands from it. And then it leans towards the one with a more average distribution of lands to spells. And I say leans towards, I know this because I wrote the verbiage that described the system that we shared with the people when I was on the Arena team. And I know the formula that's being used, or that was being used at the point that I left. I don't know if they've changed the formula. I don't think they've told us they have, and I really believe that if they muck with that system, they would tell us about it. So I think the formula is the same. And here's what I don't understand about this notion of and maybe I just need to do the math more carefully, but here's how it goes through in my head when I think about trying to shave lands to abuse something that is leaning towards a more average distribution of lands. So if you've decided to run 12 lands in your 40 card deck, I should get a calculator up, do some on-the-fly calculations. We got 40. So every 3 1/3 cards is you're looking at 3.3 lands every. Sorry, this is where I shouldn't do math. This is I want to do math before I start talking about it. But basically, your average expectation with 12 lands, you get say 13 cards into your deck. You only expect to have like 4 lands by then. What bugs me about the abuse of the starting hand system philosophies is they seem to, it's like, but you still have the rest of your deck to draw, and like, is that the right ratio? Like, let's say, haha, you abuse the system so that you get often 2 land openers, and then you draw a lot of gas. But then, like, a lot of times you're just not going to find the 3rd land. Like, it's not like it changes the composition of the rest of your deck. It just changes your starting hand, and then you still have the rest of the deck to draw. So I don't understand how they're even trying to game that system long term. Like, you're trying to game it to get a good starting hand, or like to then have a lot of action coming up. But there's such risk there. There's such risk unless you're really trying to be a 1 and 2 drop deck, in which case I can get behind it. Like, if you want to both take advantage of the algorithm and do a hyper low curve, I get it, but I don't understand even what the plan is, trying to get the algorithm with a 12 lander in an otherwise normal looking curve. It just feels like that's just setting up for disaster to me. And I don't think a day full of results or whatever is going to convince me that that's something to do. Fool Auto asks, why would they use an algorithm for starting hand and not just a random deck shuffle? This was a philosophy we debated, talked about, and decided to test, and then they haven't abandoned the test. And the idea is that people, the frustrations of mana troubles in Magic are compounded by a best of one scenario where you feel like, not only did I lose to having to mulligan into Oblivion, but I wasn't even playing best 2 out of 3, so I couldn't even try to come back and win the next 2 games. I just got blown out, and that was all there was to it. So the idea was people would be a little more tolerant of the swings of fortune in best of one Magic if the times that you had to mulligan were reduced. So that was the philosophy behind implementing that system. I just question about whether or not one should be trying to abuse that system unless you've like really done the math on it and have a really mathematical approach to why what you're doing makes sense from an expectation of when you're going to have what amounts of mana by what turns. And I haven't done that math, so I'm not going to pretend, but my eyebrow is raised, and I don't think it makes sense to me to try and abuse that system without even knowing what the algorithm is actually doing. And best of 3 does not use it, correct, Fool Auto.